Hi guys, it's Jim. I'm here with Steve, and this is Sports with Mono and Mono. It's 11/11/19. Less than 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving.
That's right. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Hope
Yep.
you had a good week. So we'll jump right into football.
Yes.
Being that it's football season.
And that's what we do. That's
So-
our first thing, but our first segment is sponsored, of course, by Coriano Trucking Incorporated in West Haverstraw, New York. So, Steve,
Thank
lead
you,
us
guys.
off here. What was the big game in the Northeast yesterday? You know?
Oh, I would venture about 20 minutes from where we're broadcasting at MetLife Stadium. A little Jet home game, hosting their, stadium partners and co-tenant.
They were the home team. Giants had to play on the opposite side of the field.
That's right. Maybe that's what really threw things off.
It could have been
for
with
Big Blue.
Right, the preparation and the unfamiliarity with that sideline.
So I will say, of course, like any other knowledgeable football fan, or so we think, I took the New York Giants to actually beat the New York Jets yesterday.
I'm guilty.
Silly me.
I'm sitting in the same firing squad as you. I took it too. And now shame on us, but I don't know that anybody would have taken the Jets, but they beat them.
They beat them fair and square. The Giants, again, I mean, the Jets have obviously been in the news the last couple weeks, taking some headlines about their ineptitude. And I think the Giants have kind of gotten a free pass. Not that people don't know how bad they are, but it's obviously a battle of the Post and Daily News and the headlines. And the Jets, like I said, for the last couple weeks, pathetic, losing to the Dolphins.
But if the Jets weren't so bad, the Giants would be under the microscope and we'd start to peel the onion and go, look at this. This offensive line is a joke. 13 carries,
1 yard.
1 yard.
Not
And
good.
not because he's not a great player. It's just because there's nothing there.
He is the first New York Giant since 1985. One Rob Carpenter,
Number
was the
26.
was the last New York Giant to have a performance like that. And to the Giants' offensive line's credit, they all stood up and said it was their fault. I mean, if there's no holes, you can't run. Saquon Barkley, Jim Brown, Walter Payton, Earl Campbell.
Agreed.
aside.
That's why I take no credibility like it was on Barkley at all.
Right, so the Giants lost two-fifths of their offensive, or they played with 2/5 of their offensive line.
And a
yesterday.
third guy actually had
Right,
come in.
and it was just so bad. I mean, the epitome, I think, was Jamal Adams coming in basically untouched and
Pickpocketing.
stripping Mr. Jones of the ball like he was a child and running the ball in, 25 yards
Yeah,
or so.
yeah.
So, Jamal...
Claiming it was his city. Did
Yeah.
you see that?
So as he was running to the end zone, I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, the ego on this guy is just going to get even bigger. 'Cause of
Exactly.
the trade thing from a couple weeks ago.
Oh, his value just
Oh,
went
my
up
God.
$2 million a year.
His
Just,
agent will be playing that replay
Exactly.
for Chris Johnson and
Right.
Mr.
call Scott
all the
Boros.
time.
Yeah, you'll get your money. You'll get your money.
But back to the game again. I mean, Daniel Jones throws 4 touchdown passes. We're not blaming this kid at all. They're going to ride with this guy going forward.
We
But-
knew this was going to happen.
But there's an awful lot of bad pieces here with the Giants. But the good news in the offseason, I was told, is they have about $100 million again to spend.
Okay, but we had that
And
2 years
I get
ago
it.
when we signed Olivier Vernon.
Well, I
we
get it.
signed these guys that didn't make 9 tackles for
So
$40
Dave
million.
Gettleman is on the clock again, and Giants will have a high draft pick once again. They should probably finish no lower than 6th or 7th or
Right,
something
4,
like that.
possibly 5 wins if they get, a little
the
streaky. The
Jets-
Dolphins even won 2 games,
Right.
so I mean it's
I
possible.
mean, the Jets love that number 4 pick overall.
Yeah.
It seems like they have the number 4 pick every year.
Uh-huh.
But the point being is, it's just bad. Pat Shermer's being questioned. The defense is just terrible on the Giants.
And do you see Pat Shermer's career record? I mean, I'm starting, like I said, I've been souring on this guy for a while. I was willing to give him a chance. His record is abysmal. It's horrible.
Not good. It's Rich Kotite approaching.
And I do watch the game, and I do question his game management. Like, this isn't Tom Landry. Tom Landry wouldn't do this, or Vince Lombardi wouldn't do this. And that's what he does.
Right. Well, I don't think the Giants will fire Pat Shermer during the season.
No.
But I'm sure he's on notice that he is going to have a pretty tough exit interview after the season.
I think it's
give
almost
a case
imminent.
as to why he should be brought back. But I think it's up to Gettleman in the off season. Again, they're going to have a ton of money. Is free agency the be all end all? No,
No,
it's
it's
not.
a hit or miss. We know that. We know
It
that.
seems like it's more of a miss than a hit, right?
But
Things are bad in New York, and both teams stink. And the Jets got the better of the Giants, and shame on us for even thinking that the Giants were going to beat the Jets.
and it's kind of funny because this whole Adam Gase, like you hear these Jet fans are going bananas. Like this is the most ridiculous thing. Somebody rented an airplane and flew it over Manhattan and said fire Gase or
Right.
something, right? So he doesn't get fired before the end of the season, but he may not be back.
They
for
got
sure.
nothing else to talk about.
Exactly.
What else are they going to talk about?
I agree.
So around the NFL, another marquee game. But before we get to that, wanted to talk about Lamar Jackson's performance yesterday.
Please do.
In particular,
That run?
there was a highlight of Lamar Jackson dropping back to pass. Turned out to be a 47-yard run. And when I tell you he did the spin move and deacon two guys, it was
Perfect.
Perfect.
Like it was a choreographed
like an
filming
NBA,
of a movie.
NBA point guard.
It really
something
was.
like that, spinning at it down the lane type of thing. But it was just a phenomenal athletic maneuver and really accentuated why Lamar Jackson is really
The up and coming, he's
He's there.
moving rapidly into the top 5, top 4 quarterbacks in the league, possibly the MVP,
He's
right?
there.
Based on if it ended
yeah.
today.
Him and Russell Wilson are probably the two leading.
And McCaffrey's
Yeah.
got to be in there.
I would say quarterback would get it before a running back. McCaffrey's not exactly going to have 2,000 plus yards or something, but he's having a great year.
His numbers are pretty
They're
impressive.
good. Don't
They're
get me
impressive.
wrong, but I think
And I
Lamar
like him
Jackson,
too. Like I saw a piece on ESPN on him. Cool kid,
not bad, right?
nice kid.
But Russell Wilson on the flip side, Russell
Huge
Wilson,
on him.
first NFL quarterback to be at this stage after 9 games to have 22 touchdown passes and 1 interception. He just broke the record of Drew Brees, who had 21 touchdown passes and 1 interception. But that just goes to show what an incredible year Russell Wilson's having. Under the radar, highest paid quarterback.
Well, not under the radar to us. 'Cause
No.
We've talked about this guy, and I actually wanted to ask you this because Monday Night Football is tonight, right?
Right.
And it's Russell Wilson versus San Francisco. They're undefeated. I wanted your take on it because I had conversation today with my friend Troy, who's our new listener, and I sit
Okay.
right next to him. And this guy knows what he's talking about.
Well, I like.
So
the
we
Seattle
talked
Seahawks
about it, and I
tonight.
wanted to bring it up. And I said to Troy, "Do you know this guy Russell Wilson? He's like 8-1 on Monday Night Football. This guy doesn't lose in prime time." But we both concede we like Jimmy Garoppolo, and that's actually Troy's guy. He goes, "I love this kid." And we talked about how he had to get out of New England, or he was either thrown out of New England. But
No,
what
he
a
was-
perfect scenario! And these guys are undefeated, and they're really good. Who do you think's going to win tonight?
I'll take the Seattle Seahawks tonight.
That's who I was going to take.
I think the Niners, they're 8-0. I think they'll stub their toe tonight. Their defense is playing great. I'm
They
looking
are.
forward to actually watching Nick Bosa really for the first time. I've
Me
only
too.
seen some highlights of him.
Me
But
too.
he's got 7 sacks already. Just playing real good football.
Yep.
Niners are home. There's excitement back in San Francisco.
I just was talking about this today with somebody, and I said, like 2 years ago, they were a horrible football team,
They
and
were.
now, boom, look, they're contenders.
They just sold the most tickets for a Niners game, for tonight's game, in a long time.
Well, it's a nice venue to go see a game. I
Yeah.
mean, if
So
I was
there's-
out there,
There's
I'd
been
go.
a Super Bowl hosted there, and there has been a
course.
national championship college game hosted there.
Yeah.
But now the Niners are starting to roll again, so that's good for business out there.
Yep.
But it should be a good game. Looking forward to it, and we'll see Russell Wilson against one of the top defenses in the NFL.
Yep, and
But I like Seattle.
I do too.
Yeah.
Because I like Russell Wilson, and he's a big time player.
Sure. And then the other marquee game was the Cowboys-Vikings.
I knew we were going to get to that.
Well, I took the Vikings going into Dallas. Even though I'm a Cowboy fan, I like to be objective. And Cowboys were favored by 3 points. Not faulting Dak Prescott. Dak had 397 yards.
You becoming a buyer of the Vikings now, or I mean, Kirk
Well,
Cousins?
I think if the Vikings stay healthy, they're a pretty good team.
The running game is phenomenal.
There's Dalvin Cook. If he stays healthy, really. Uh,
I didn't see him becoming a
he's pretty
major
good.
factor.
No, he's pretty good.
He's really good.
He got hurt last year. He had a knee injury, but he's come back strong. He's one of the top backs in the league.
But
so.
this has got to all be on Cousins, man.
Yeah, but
it's on
having
him.
Dalvin Cook really helps.
Big time. Doesn't
Kirk
hurt,
Cousins.
no
So
question.
Cousins had a good night. Kyle Rudolph made an incredible catch in the back of the end zone.
And he's a great kid, too.
He's a great kid out of Notre Dame.
Oh, my goodness.
And,
Does so much for the community. It's ridiculous.
That's right. And if Mike Zimmer's the head coach, ex-Cowboy assistant for a long time, and
Yep.
I was actually lobbying for Mike Zimmer to actually get the Cowboy job over 10 years ago when they gave it to Garrett.
He might still get it someday,
Well, we'll see, but he's got his.
If they can't get Lincoln Riley to come to Dallas.
But again, I mean, it's the Dallas Cowboys, so now we're 5-4. Last week, Jason Garrett was keeping his job for 3 more years.
Oh, do we have to
This
even
week-
hear about this?
This week, Jason should be let go again. I'm going to say next week,
Hasn't this been going on for 3 years?
But there's concern for the Cowboys, and I mean it by their schedule. They got a tough schedule down the line. They got the Patriots. They got to go to the Eagles. On and on. They got
Yeah.
some tough games coming up. So
And I'm surprised. I wouldn't have thought they would have let Minnesota come in there last night in their house and beat them.
well, the Vikings played great defense. They shut Elliott down. I mean, shut him down big time. He only had, I think, 32 yards.
Oh, really?
14 carries. He had like a Barkley day, a little bit better, maybe a little over 2 yards a carry.
Wasn't a huge running back weekend for guys. Only a couple guys only got over 100 yards.
Right, so the Vikings are sitting pretty,
Yep.
and I think the Cowboys are in trouble. And even though they beat the Eagles already in the division,
Eagles
they still
are a
got to
good
play
team.
the Eagles.
They're a good
And
team.
I think the Eagles' schedule is much easier. So
Yep.
watch for the Eagles Cowboys battling it out in the NFC East. The Cleveland Browns. Let's bring that up.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Bills. Of course, I took the Buffalo Bills on the road.
So did
yesterday.
I.
And they missed a field goal to tie the game up with 17 seconds to go.
Yep.
And Cleveland escapes with a victory.
Yep.
Baker didn't play too bad.
But how could they possibly have been a 3-point favorite? I know they were home over Buffalo.
Yeah.
And I texted Mike Burns, who's a loyal listener of ours from Syracuse,
Right.
Buffalo Bills fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
And my response this morning was, Buffalo just can't stand success. I mean, this is a perfect, easy win, move on, stay in the race. Now they're going to finish 8-8.
We'll see. I still like the Bills. I like that defense. I like Sean McDermott.
I like
But-
Josh Allen.
But very disappointed with that loss by them. I really,
Horrible.
That's a game they should win if they want to make the playoffs.
That's my
And-
point. That's my
and
point.
put those wins in the bank in early November.
Win the ones you're supposed to win, and then you could win the games that you may
They
not.
let that get away.
We know how it goes.
And then if we'll switch to what about the Rams Steelers yesterday? I wanted to bring up our boy Jared Goff.
Okay.
I'm very concerned with our boy Jared Goff because both of us have touted him big time ever since the Super Bowl and the championship game last year.
Yep.
And then he gets his big contract. Year
Admittedly,
3 for
I've
him.
been on his camp, and I'm not jumping off the ship
I've
yet.
had some detractors. I've been
I know.
really trying to battle.
Rightfully so.
But I'm telling you, I'm getting very concerned with his play.
But let me address that real quick, because the Rams themselves as a whole team isn't the same team. So he's going to take the fall. He's the quarterback. He's the multi-million-dollar quarterback. But there's a lot of other holes, and Aaron Donald can't do it himself.
Aaron
Aaron Donald can't do it himself, right?
Yeah, so I think obviously the Rams had a magical year last year, but they're in the same division with the 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh,
and
they're-
now the defending NFC champs are
Their best hope is a wild
is
card.
a wild card. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring up Jared Goff, the Pittsburgh Steelers. again, they're on a 4-game win streak.
That was my lock of the week.
Minka Fitzpatrick, little St. Peter's product from Jersey City, Alabama.
Pittsburgh slowly making their way back.
But
and
he's been a great trade for them. This is
done it.
probably his 3rd game with the Steelers, and he's making an impact. He had like a fumble recovery for a touchdown yesterday. He's had an interception return for 96 yards.
All right.
So the Steelers,
Yep.
minus Roethlisberger, are playing well. So, again, we talked about Seattle, San Fran tonight. That's tonight. We both like Seattle.
Yep.
However, it should be a good game. And if San Francisco wins, I wouldn't be surprised. But if we're going to pick a team, I'm going to go with Seattle.
Yep, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, so...
That's good. It's good NFL coverage.
Yeah,
you know.
I don't think there were any real significant injuries of note. So, week 11 is over for the most part after tonight, and then,
Yep.
the season it will rapidly come to a close. Before you know it, there'll be the Saturday games, and
That's right.
and before you know it, the playoffs will be upon us. So.
And Giants get a bye week this week to
And the
lick their
Giants will
wounds.
have a lot of bye weeks in January,
Yeah.
so and the Jets, of course.
All right, Steve. So let's move on to some college football because this is just as exciting to us as the NFL,
Sure.
right? And obviously, let's start with our sponsor, Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, loyal supporter of our program.
No doubt. Thanks,
So-
Mike Lynch.
So college football, right? Marquee game, LSU, Alabama. I picked Alabama.
I picked Alabama.
Yep. But I got to tell you, I've become more and more impressed with this kid Joe Burrow. I wasn't a big fan of his, but what a year he's having, and to score 45 points on the Nick Saban team is. We're not worthy.
I think your co-host has
We're not
been
worthy.
touting Joe Burrow all college football season.
Who?
Me.
Oh, you?
And I've actually been on the other show defending Joe Burrow as well. I'm going on record right now. I think he cemented the Heisman Trophy. As we speak right now, subject to change. But I got to think this kid, the kid is completing going into the Alabama game 78.7% of his passes.
I know, and you know who I think is still in the running for the Heisman, despite the loss to Kansas State or whatever it was, Kansas. Jalen Hurts. The guy's putting up unbelievable numbers. I mean,
No, he is.
unbelievable
But
numbers.
he's not winning the Heisman because Oklahoma isn't going anywhere. They lost to Kansas State, and I don't think he can recover from that.
Got a few weeks left of college football, so let's not get out of
I'm talking Joe Burrow going into Alabama, Tuscaloosa. He throws for over 300-something yards. His completion percentage, even in the game, was
I'm agreeing
spot
with you.
on.
I'm agreeing
Three
with you.
touchdown passes, no picks. Rushed for, I want to say, 76 yards. He actually got up after one point, did a mini Desmond Howard, little Heisman pose.
He didn't.
He didn't do it. He didn't do a full Heisman pose, but
Please.
I think you'll see a lot of highlights of that.
I must have
During the
stepped
Heisman
out of the
Trophy.
room because I
No,
didn't see
He was
that.
caught up in the moment.
Okay.
So, listen, LSU, I think right now has punched themselves a ticket
To the Final
for the
Four?
top four. I would imagine they'll be the number one team in the nation now.
Why? Ohio State just took over that.
Yeah,
didn't they?
LSU beating Alabama is a bigger signature win. I think LSU is beating Florida.
And Clemson keeps winning, and they keep going down in the polls.
Well,
Is that how
Clemson's
that's?
not playing the top-notch competition, but Clemson is getting a bum rap. I will say that. Watch out for Clemson. That's what they want. They want everybody to forget about them.
And who could forget about
and
them if you know what
they
we're
will
talking
be,
about?
I'm saying Clemson will be in the top four as well.
Absolutely,
But
absolutely.
listen, Alabama, Tua. What can I say? He didn't play terribly, but did really nothing.
He's not healthy.
He's not healthy. You could see him after the game.
He's not healthy.
Really limping bad. And, Nick Saban's team takes it on the chin. But listen, it was kind of a tale of two games there. The first half, LSU completely dominated. I think their score at halftime was like 33-17, something along those lines. But Alabama in the second half outscored LSU like 28-13,
I
something
know,
along
but
those lines. But it was too little, too late.
Yep.
And I think Alabama I don't really see them making the top four now. Although we've said this about Alabama before, and they've gotten in before, but I think this year, I think it's too tough for them to get in because you got.
Losing to LSU is not going to keep them
It's
out
not
of
a
the Final
killer.
Four.
It's not a killer, but they
Yeah.
have to win a conference championship game, that type of thing. But I don't even think they make it to the conference championship because they're not going to win the division. So that's the reason why. Normally they make it to the conference championship.
Well,
They'll
that's-
have a loss during the regular season and make it up
Yeah.
in that. So I think this year, I think they're finally going to get squeezed out. That's just my guess. But you also have to consider Minnesota. So they played Penn State, and Penn State was going into this week one of the top four teams.
Yeah, they were destined for that.
But they
one of the four
you can,
spots.
You can count Penn State out. They are.
But we
now-
just talked about this. How long do you think Minnesota is going to be undefeated? Don't they have to play a couple of Big Ten schools left before
Right.
the end of the season?
If I remember correctly, Ohio State and Minnesota, I think, will square off.
Absolutely.
So those are two undefeated teams.
Huh.
But I got to think Ohio State will prevail out of the Big Ten. Also, talking Ohio State, their top player, Chase Young, was
Who's
in
a
the news.
beast, by the way.
He's a beast, Stanley. He's
Yeah.
a beast.
He's a beast.
He's a beast. So that's a little honeymooners reference for our fans.
Oh, they know by now. They know by now.
But again, we had talked last week briefly about players getting compensated in college and the NCAA met. So here you have an instance of a top player leads the Division One in sacks, 13 and a half.
But isn't the
tackles for loss.
timing awkward? Like
They can't-
this must go on all the time,
They
and they're
can't pay-
singling the best defensive player in the country out for
Well,
4
apparently
games.
he took a loan from a family friend 2 years ago.
Oh,
but-
really?
Yeah, but it's since been repaid.
Right.
So it's.
He borrowed $20 from his cousin,
Yeah.
right? And now they're with a hang 'em.
I'm sure Chase got a fat envelope, a white envelope.
It
Let's
happens
make
across
no mistake
the
about
sport.
it. I got it.
It's silly.
But
Silly.
Ohio State is scrambling. They're appealing. There's a chance this kid will get a 4-game ban and be back probably for the
Unbelievable.
national championship run. So we'll
Right.
see what happens. I would think.
There's nobody on Florida or Miami or any other
I'll
team.
go on record now. If Chase is eligible for the draft, I'm going to think Chase is going to declare for the draft.
Yeah. I've had enough of this, right? Yeah.
Right. So anyway, back to Penn State, Minnesota. Those are two undefeated teams
Best record for Minnesota in
going
like
into
60
the game.
years.
And listen, Minnesota, to their credit, they held off Penn State. And like I said, I think you can count Penn State out now of the.
Oh, absolutely.
Playoff.
That took them out.
But then there's some other teams out there that are worthy of discussion for the top 4 right now, and Oregon has got to be one of them. Oregon, it lost their opener to Auburn, which is a real good team. So, that doesn't really hurt them. And
Yeah,
they're
that kinda
undefeated. And
does.
they're actually they're going to play nobody really going forward. So
Right, they play a weak Pac-10 schedule
exactly.
down the road.
But the point is, they should be in position for.
Right,
know.
but they lost, and Alabama lost. So if those two schools had one loss, Alabama gets in.
We'll see. But again, that's why a lot of people are still not discounting Alabama. So back to Minnesota, just checking their schedule. They got 3 games left. Not bad. They're on the road at Iowa, which is
It's not easy to play.
no lock there. They got a Patsy in Northwestern's having a real bad year under Pat Fitzgerald.
Yeah, a setback year for
So
those
they're
guys.
1-8 is Northwestern, and then Minnesota hosts Wisconsin.
Tough team.
Totally. So
Jonathan Taylor, unbelievable.
So the point is, Minnesota. To your question, do they play some tough schedule? They got 2 pretty decent Big Ten games. Wisconsin probably being their
Toughest.
biggest obstacle there. So back to Ohio State, Minnesota. So say Minnesota runs the table, they're undefeated, and Ohio,
They're not going to be
and,
Ohio.
and Ohio State is undefeated.
Yeah, that would be a great game.
Yeah, right.
That'd be a great
But
game.
who would make it, right? So I
Yeah.
would think Minnesota and Ohio State got to play in the Big Ten championship game.
Well, like we said, they got to get out of Iowa first, and we'll talk.
Yeah,
We may
but
not
this
even
is
be
all
talking about them.
speculation,
Right?
but I just wanted to throw those names up there. And then Georgia is still lurking because Georgia's a one-loss team, and if they make it to the conference championship and win, then then they stake a claim. So, point is,
I was kind of on Georgia's bandwagon in the beginning of the year, and sure as hell they stumbled, and
Right.
so now they're on the outside looking in kind of thing.
So at the end of the day, it's pure speculation. But I think, again, after all the smoke, right now, I think you and I are confident we can name 3 of the 4. I think LSU, Ohio State, Clemson are in the running right now
Yes.
for 3 of the 4 spots with multiple teams and jockeying to go. So,
But few games to go.
Yeah.
SEC matchups and Big Ten matchups.
Yep.
It's great.
it's awesome. So college football, I mean, locally, there was rumors to Greg Schiano, the former Rutgers head coach, had interest in coming back.
Yep.
Our buddy Nunzio Campanelli, friend of the show, he's doing a real serviceable job maintaining the ship at Rutgers. But word on the street is Schiano and Rutgers met last week. I don't really have any inside information as to the meeting, but
I could
maybe,
tell you a
Jeff,
couple
what
of
do you
things.
got?
I heard there were some significant demands that he was asking, and like you said, it's part of negotiations. But he's asking for a lot, almost like daring these guys to go with somebody else if he doesn't get what he wants. So I got to tell you, I would love to have Nunzio stay on that job. I think he's the right guy. He can get kids, and I know Schiano can get local kids because he's got ties to Ramapo and so forth. But I would love to go in a different direction, not see the same movie twice, and but I think it could happen. They're really looking very closely.
I think it could happen. It sounds like Schiano wants back to Rutgers, and again, am I fully on board with this? For some reason, I'm not.
I'm certainly not.
I'm not discounting that the guy did a real nice job here.
Record
while
was
he
pretty
here.
good at
He was
Rutgers.
68 and 67, which he might as well have been 43 games over 500, because in comparison.
But he made a
At
couple
another
of bowls,
school.
5, 6
Yeah,
maybe.
Listen, he got Rutgers up to number 7 in the country. They were
Yeah.
11-0 one year. Mike Teal was the quarterback, and they had that big win against Louisville, against Teddy Bridgewater.
Yep. I remember.
At Rutgers. So, but again, I've talked about this about Rutgers being in the Big Ten. Can he make them competitive? Well, what does that mean? Make make Rutgers what in Indiana, and go 6-5,
Or
5-6.
Illinois of late, just not winning the game, not even being competitive.
Right, winning what 3 games in the Big Ten? Is that competitive? Well, it's all about the money, and if they're going to hire Schiano, they got Big Ten money coming in, so they can obviously afford it, and we shall see what happens. But
And we
ironically, though, Ohio State comes to town this week for the
Yeah.
Rutgers Scarlet Knights, so you can bet the farm they're laying at least 70 on Rutgers this weekend.
it's probably not a
And if
ridiculous.
we have any betting people out there and the spread is 50 points, I would take Ohio State 100 out of 100.
If they were playing at the Horseshoe, it might be 70, but they're playing on the road, so it might only be 50, 57, something like
yes,
that.
that makes sense.
Right?
I think it probably low 50s is probably right, about 52 or so. But you can expect an ass whooping.
But we're talking about college football, and there was a team that I wanted to bring up because they used to be good. When we were growing up, Arkansas was pretty good.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
They're horrible. Fired their coach
They
yesterday.
most certainly
Like
did.
1.5 years into something
Yeah.
ridiculous, abysmal record kind of thing.
Abysmal. 2 years he took over. They
Chad
fired-
Morris, I think. Okay?
But he took over for Brett Bielema, who was the former Wisconsin head coach.
Yeah.
And Bielema
Right.
had plenty of time to turn that around. But to your point, Art, when you think Arkansas football, we think of what? Frank Broyles. We think of Lou Holtz. We think of,
Yep.
they were always in contention.
Yep.
And, the last, I don't know, solid NFL players that really came out of there.
Ooh.
Felix Jones was from the Cowboys drafting. Darren McFadden was also from Arkansas.
Wasn't there like three guys like they were back in Arkansas and they got suspended before the Orange Bowl or something? It was like a threesome of guys. I think it was Arkansas, wasn't it?
I'm not sure on that. So
I mean, this is 30 some odd years ago
right,
when they were competitive,
but the point is, Arkansas was relevant 30
but
years
isn't that
ago.
interesting? Like they're so irrelevant now that it's kind of going. Wait,
Yeah, well, Arkansas, the alum, it's the same thing what we talked about Willie Taggart last week at Florida State.
Yeah.
They all passed the hat in the back room. And
Said enough is enough.
That's it.
Yep.
Pull the plug. Let's get a,
It's kind of
bona
very
fide
similar
coaching
because remember Clemson when Danny Ford was the coach, they won the national championship. They were kind of irrelevant in football for quite a stretch, and now they're back on top with Dabo Sweeney. Could happen.
Yeah. And then you can bet the farm when Nick Saban packs it in, Dabo Sweeney will be the new head coach of Alabama in about 10 minutes.
I think 8 minutes would be. Take the owner. Can you name that tune in 3 notes?
Exactly.
Kind of
So that's pretty much our take
Good.
on college football, and we can just segue real quick to our local high school scene.
Yeah.
So Ramapo, we'll start with public. They beat up on Bergenfield in defense of their state championship in round 1.
Yeah, I can't see them losing any. To
Well,
anybody.
they have a game, and we were talking about, hey, who's Ramapo playing next? Well, they're playing a team out of Newark. Never heard of them, so,
Right.
Newark, West Side, something like that. So we shall see. I would expect Ramapo to take care of business. On the non-public side, the St. Joseph Green Knights got a bye, but this coming weekend for all our Bergen Catholic Don Bosco fanatics and alum, another rematch, 2 heavyweights. It's always a marquee game.
It's the marquee game in New Jersey.
And this will be no different this weekend.
For the second time this year.
So I think Bergen travels to Bosco.
They do.
And it should be a war.
I think.
Yeah, they do.
They
Because
do.
Bosco's a higher seed. And St. Joe's is playing Paramus Catholic this weekend.
But remember, I told you about, I saw Paramus Catholic and St. Joe's the first game.
Yeah.
This guy on that team, I can't remember his name, but he's going to Penn State.
He's a very large individual, is what you said.
Maybe the largest high school guy I've ever seen. And I'm not kidding about that.
Well, he'll be invading Montvale
All right.
on Saturday. So the high school playoff scene is starting to.
But we would be remiss if
Take
we
off.
didn't mention, we don't just want to work the Northeast high school thing. Mike Garvey from Naples,
Yeah, how did
Went to see-
Naples do?
they won. They're moving on in their playoff
Yeah,
bracket.
moving on up, moving on up.
So the Naples football team is quite prominent in Florida at this
Okay,
time.
so we'll expect wire reports from Mr. Garvey.
We get them every
as,
week.
As Naples progresses into the playoffs. We wish them good luck.
But high school football is intense. It's so fun to watch. It's great. It really is.
Right, so we're hoping that St. Joe's advances back to the Meadowlands. So
Yep.
we thoroughly enjoy attending that and
Yep.
doing the tailgate in the parking lot and everything else.
So we'll keep
see
you
what
guys
happens.
posted on that.
You got it.
So Steve, before we end our football segment, anything happen in your football world this weekend?
Most certainly did. So as a lot of our listeners know, my 12 and 13-year-old team that I'm a coach of, a member of the coaching staff, we took on Garfield in our championship game last night at Riverdale at Doug Parcells Field. And let me tell you, it was a hard-hitting 12 and 13-year-old game. And we were down. We were down 6-0, tied it up 6-6, went down 12-6, we tied it up 12-12, back and forth. We had a goal line stand at the end of the game, and then we go to overtime, and Garfield gets the ball first. We stuff them, we get it, and we win the championship. So
Wow,
it was
congratulations.
great. So Oakland takes home this big super trophy, and couldn't be prouder of the boys.
Excellent.
That's what we'll finish
Excellent.
our football.
That's my nephew's on that team.
That
by the
is
way.
number 10, Sean Monahan.
Yeah.
So good luck. It was just a great
Awesome.
thing, and just shout out to the boys and the coaches.
Great.
Thank you.
So listen, we're getting a little late in the show, so I guess we're going to have to talk about the NBA and the state of affairs with the New York Knickerbockers, who we both thought were going to have Zion Williamson playing for them, and that's what everybody thought. But without him,
Not
Horrible.
so good.
2-8.
2-8, surprising the New York Knicks off to a 2-8 start with such a revamped roster.
Yeah, I mean Julius Randle. I mean, you kidding me?
But I mean, again, we're broadcasting now. News came, I think it was today or even yesterday. Again, the Knicks are a circus. So the president of the Knicks is this guy Steve Mills, who we've been saying, how this guy has a job for the last 20 years. I don't know what kind of blackmail he has on James Dolan, but he has to have something.
Yeah.
So him and Scott Perry's the general manager. They apparently have just thrown their coach under the bus, David Fizdale, saying the 2-8 start is this guy's fault. So they're pointing fingers at him, which means all three of them are probably going to lose their job.
Well, we were talking before. Is that Steve Mills should be packing his office boxes too,
Right.
Because
So,
it's not just on Fizdale. They don't have anybody.
right, but the point is, the Knicks too. They don't just lose. They lose them by 31. They lose them by 21. They lose them by 31.
Right, but they were
lose them-
competitive in a few of them, and then they fell apart, and
Right.
it's crazy.
So again, there's no quick fix for the New York Knicks. This is just.
Did
a
people really
long-running
think they were
joke.
going to win 40 games this year?
I know.
I certainly didn't.
I never said that. Did you say that?
I
never
didn't
said
say
that.
it. No.
But look for that nonsense
All
to
right,
probably come to a conclusion in the next couple days. The Brooklyn Nets are a good team. They're still waiting. Obviously, Durant is out for
Whole
the
season.
foreseeable future. Absolutely.
Whole season.
Kyrie Irving, but the Nets are obviously the better of the two New York teams. We'll see how they progress.
Yep.
Gordon Hayward, NBA News, just broke his hand for the Celtics.
Ouch.
And the kid was actually playing well.
He's a good player.
Real good player. They got him from Utah. And now that they got rid of Kyrie Irving and so on, you're expecting Hayward to carry the team.
Yep.
So he's kind of been injury prone, but we like Gordon Hayward
Yep.
on this show. Outside of that, I think the storylines, the Lakers are playing well. Davis and LeBron are a great 1-2 punch. Houston, Westbrook and Harden. I really, because this is what we're trying to do for a living now, is work a show.
But it's
I
hard
gotta
for me
watch
to
it.
dedicate
I
2
gotta,
hours.
I gotta watch it, and sometimes it's quite painful.
Yeah.
Quite painful.
Right. I mean, I struggled to watch an NBA playoff game, much less regular season. But we do know what's going on. And like I said, Golden State's not the team they were. And things are changing.
But we'll follow the NBA
Yep.
as it progresses.
We will.
And then real quick on the college scene, because, college basketball is probably into week 2 now. So last week, the marquee game, it was... Listen, if I knew about it in advance, that's something I would have gone to.
That was a tough ticket to get,
Oh
I
my
think.
God! You got Michigan State number 1 versus Kentucky, which is number 2,
Yep.
and Kentucky really took it to Michigan State.
Oh, they got some dynamite freshmen again. Like they just can replenish, just
Yeah.
like Duke and North
The
Carolina.
last kid's name is Maxey. He's a freshman.
Hmm.
He scored the most points a freshman had in his debut or something like that in Kentucky history.
Yep.
Kid was really good, freshman guard. And so they just flip-flop. Kentucky's now the new number 1. Duke is number 2 now. Michigan State's number 3. And actually Louisville's back in the top 5. So obviously with the scandal with Rick Pitino, and again, Rick Pitino didn't know anything about it.
Of course not. Are you kidding
Complete
me?
joke.
And they paid him off to dismiss
Right.
the lawsuit or whatever. I mean, you kidding me?
Exactly.
He worked it brilliantly. You got to give him credit.
Nah, but
He
Rick-
is a genius when it comes to
Rick's a good coach, but his reputation is thoroughly tarnished on sports with mono and mono. I
Right,
can
but
tell you that. But Louisville is back. North Carolina's in the top 10. They're at 6.
oh, can't wait till that
The
starts.
standard
heating up.
names are all there.
Of course.
So, we'll follow college
Yep.
basketball.
But let me just bring up a quick college note because I'm an alum of Niagara University who
Absolutely.
hired Patrick Beelan, coach's
Beeline,
son,
sure,
son of John, former Michigan coach, now coach of the Cavaliers.
Yep.
Resigned before his first game.
Ah.
For personal reasons, don't know the scoop. I will find out. I have some inside sources.
Okay.
But the new head coach is Greg Paulus, and I
Right.
think you would know who Greg Paulus is.
Yes, actually, Greg Paulus was a standout guard at Duke.
Yes, he
Well,
was.
I would say, over 10 years now, right? Time
Every bit of
flies,
it. Every bit of it.
Right, and he also is famous for being a quarterback at Syracuse. So he was
Right.
he was one of the first, you know, when you think about Russell Wilson transferring Wisconsin and North Carolina State,
Yep.
that type of thing, which it seems like it's very common now. But Greg Paulus was really at the forefront of eligibility. Smart kid, and so he's the new coach at Niagara. I think that's a nice hire. He's
Yeah.
a good basketball
They're
man.
pretty excited about it. I guarantee he's the only guy that ever played quarterback for another school and started at point guard for Coach K.
I would be safe
Obviously.
with that assumption.
Obviously.
Right.
Anyway,
But
that's
your
just a
Purple
shameless.
Eagles took it on the chin to the Rutgers Scarlet
They
Knights
did,
last
yeah.
night.
It's not
So
our
Greg
sport right
Paulus
now.
has a little work to do there.
Well, like I said, he just came in 3 weeks ago, so
Right.
give him some time.
I will.
All right.
So we'll be watching him.
Okay, but we'll keep you guys posted on college hoops going
Yeah.
forward.
And then real quick on baseball, just today the Rookie of the Years were announced, and our boy that we've been touting all year, Pete Alonso, no surprise there.
Runaway,
Yeah, no,
Soto second. I guess.
National League Rookie of the Year, 53 home runs, rookie record. So congratulations to the Polar Bear.
The polar bear.
And then in the American League, they announced the Rookie of the Year, Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros.
Mhm.
And they called this kid up in like early June, and this kid had 27 home runs and was on fire, and really, helped Houston get the best record in baseball.
Mhm.
So he was named the American League Rookie of the Year. And, obviously we'll follow baseball as the hot stove heats
Award
up.
season comes out. right?
Award season should be coming out soon, and
Okay.
we'll, hopefully we start getting our ballots in the mail that we can start voting. So,
Okay.
but
So
that's
listen,
pretty much
we're
it.
winding down, but why don't you bring up? We always mention a sports figure who is now of the departed. Who's the notable one that you had this week?
Well, actually, just only a couple days ago. So a lot of people remember the Detroit Lions when Matt Millen was running the show there, and all the bust draft picks that he
Oh my
had.
God, horrible.
And listen, he took a flyer on Charles Rogers. He was a wide receiver out of Michigan State.
Awesome at
He
Michigan
was
State.
great at Michigan State. He played 2 years at Michigan State, and he's still the all-time touchdown reception leader as a wide receiver in only 2 years at Michigan State.
I would have thought Andre Rison would have been
There were a
there.
lot of good names that came through there.
Sure.
Kirk Gibson.
Very good.
Right?
Yeah, very good.
But Charles Rogers was only 38 years old,
Yeah.
and he died of liver cancer. But again, Matt Millen is tied to Charles Rogers. You got to go bust. I mean, he had some injuries. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yep.
But his career, he only played in really only a handful of games over a couple of years, and I know he got on some downtime and.
A dynamic college player who's that high of a draft choice and doesn't make it in the league
Yeah,
has to be considered.
Oh yeah, he was the number 2 overall pick. So.
Right, that's enough said.
But that's a notable passing. We want to mention him.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it.
Great.
Yep. And now everything, we obviously are sponsored by Di Filippi's Bakery at Monticello. So we want to thank Carmela for her sponsorship of the show. And if
Thank
you're
you.
in the Catskills,
Yep.
once again, pop in there, ask for Carmela, and get a 10% discount on the baked goods and everything else.
Great.
Yep.
Well, listen, thanks for joining us, everybody. It was really a lot of stuff to talk about. And like I said, we try to cover as much as we can, but we're in NFL season, so we're going to primarily start with that for sure. But we would love to hear some comments from you. Please feel free to send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com.
And we actually, the mailbox is starting to really, starting to get some good feedback now. We got new listeners. We appreciate our newest members listening to the show.
We sure do.
Please, see us on YouTube. If you like us on YouTube, if you hit a thumbs up, we'd greatly appreciate it. And also find us on SoundCloud.
Yeah. And drop us a comment on either one. And like I said, our mailbox, we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy whatever sport is your favorite, and we'll talk about it next week.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
All right, Steve.
All right, Jim. Bye.